Welcome back, everybody. It is time for another edition of Silver and Black today, an Odyssey Sports original podcast, also heard on the radio in Las Vegas on 101.5 K-Dawn and also the Bet HD2. So make sure you check us out on the radio, especially Friday night, 10 p.m. So, Saturday night, 10 p.m. You can listen to the show on K-Dawn as well. Check your local listings, as they used to say, for those of us old to remember. Yes, I'm the old guy on the show, Scott Gulbransen, your host. Welcome back. And my co-host, my partner here is Mr. Moton, senior NFL writer at the old Bleacher Report. Yeah, you're familiar with that website, I am sure. He's also a Raiders columnist up on sportsnaut.com. You can follow him on x.com at Moton, M-O-E. M-O-T-O-N, and I am at LV Gully. The show is SNB Today. Guess what? Training camp, full swing. We got lots to talk about today, Mr. Moton. And I wanted to start off first by saying that we've talked about for years, right? Having a quarterback who demands and brings a presence to your team. I'm not saying Geno Smith's a top 5 quarterback. Not what I'm here to say. But what struck me, the reports, our friends on the ground covering the practices, all of the stories we've seen, all of the feedback we've received from people out there, is that Geno Smith's arrival has not only injected an energy and a confidence level, but he's also shown his ability inside these practices. And Mo, I just think his integration into this offense and this offense coming out, a new offense for the Raiders. We saw the 70-yard touchdown pass on the first day of padded practice to Dante Thornton. We'll talk about him in a few minutes. He's a rookie, continues to impress out there, wide receiver. But it just can't go understated. And I think a lot of the league, actually, and I know your fanboys out there are going to love me saying this. I'm not usually a fanboy, but I think the Raiders are their offense especially is going to be underrated because Geno Smith does not necessarily get the credit he deserves because he's not a sexy top 5 quarterback. But Mo, the difference in what you're seeing on the ground, the video we've seen, the feedback we're getting from friends like Jesse Merrick, friends like Vinny Bonsignor out there covering the team day to day, it's pretty exciting. And Raider fans, I think, should be excited about the fact that they have a quarterback who's bringing that aura to this team.
So what you're saying is the Raiders finally have a starting caliber quarterback,
Bingo,
a field general that is going to elevate the offense. That's basically what it comes down to. There were some erroneous opinions that Aiden O'Connell was outplaying Geno Smith, and Vinny Bonsignor was quick to shut that down. Not to say that Aiden O'Connell hasn't had a good camp, and I wrote a piece about Aiden O'Connell. Well, he's in my piece for this week at Sportsnaut, but Geno Smith is just on another level when it comes to being a field general. And it's exactly what the Raiders needed to get the passing attack going. I had a post Monday night where I said the Raiders' vertical attack may be back. And there were some people, the negative Nates and Nancy's, jumped on it and said, oh, Mo, it's just 7-on-7s. It's just training camp. And then there were some people that were already punching their Super Bowl tickets. And the key thing was maybe back. If you look at the way Geno Smith plays the game, if you look at the offensive playmakers the Raiders have, it's a possibility that the vertical attack could be a big part of their offense this season.
Yeah, there's no question. And something else, too. You look at what's been going on with the passing game. And we heard this week, I was glad to finally hear some extended time with Michael Mayer. Michael Mayer is flying under the radar, I think, for a lot of fans, a lot of analysts, because Brock Bowers had such an amazing rookie year. And then you bring in Geno Smith. Then you talk about the exciting rookie Dante Thornton at wide receiver. And Michael Mayer, as that second tight end, man, I'm telling you, we've been talking for weeks about who's going to be that second wide receiver. Well, that second wide receiver might be Brock Bowers and the tight end might be Michael Mayer. And you mix that all together with the guys they have. And suddenly, with that starting caliber quarterback, as you just pointed out, this offense, man, now there's other issues. Every team has question marks in training camp, Mo. But this Raiders offense with Ashton Jeanty, we see a lot too. We heard this in minicamp. Now we're seeing it continue into regular training camp. And that is they're using Ashton Jeanty a lot in passing routes, right? So they're using him this offense and what Chip Kelly can do. And I'm getting goosebumps thinking about how exciting this offense may be, because he has the pieces to do a lot of creative things, Mo. When you talk about spreading that offense out, you can throw the ball to Jeanty, to Mayer, to Bowers, to Myers, to now Thornton, Trey Tucker, if he factors in. You have all of these different weapons. Now, if the O-line holds on, great. We'll talk about that in a minute. There's competition going on there. But, man, this offense, I think, is going to be, or I should say, has the opportunity to be very, very dynamic and deadly.
So, yeah, look out for Ashton Jeanty on screenplays and wheel routes. He had 43 catches of 569 yards. And what was it? 5 touchdowns in his second year at Boise State.
Right.
So he's definitely a playmaker out of the backfield. A lot of oohs and ahs when he beat Devin White on a play at practice this week. Devin White did get his payback with some interceptions. We'll talk about Devin White in a moment. But Ashton Jeanty showing off his hands and versatility. Again, I'll say this again, though. The key thing is, can he pick up his blocking assignments on those third downs? Because if he cannot do that, he won't be on the field much. I think that's going to be the key for him to see as many third downs as he can, is if he can pick up those blocking assignments, because you want to keep your quarterback protected on obvious passing downs.
Absolutely. Other rookies, obviously, we talked about Jeanty, and you talked about the play where, as we used to say, broke Devin White's ankles, juked him, and just went downfield. Very nice point as well. He also had some tussles with Jamal Adams, as we saw on video, which was really cool. I mean, the intensity here in the training camp, the positive competitiveness of this has been very, very different than we felt in Raiders camp in a very, very long time. The thing I want to talk about, though, is this intense battle that we didn't know was ever going to happen, or at least maybe those of us who thought we knew what we were talking about, and that is at center. We all had gone to the assumption Jackson Powers-Johnson, what a great college career as a center, takes over last year for Andre James, does a great job. He's the starting center, right? Not so fast. We heard from Pete Carroll. We heard from the players himself. Intense battle between him and Jordan Meredith for that center position. Mo, what do you make of that?
I have a theory about that. I still believe that once week one rolls around, Jackson Powers-Johnson will be the center. I think this is more of the Raiders' new coaching staff forcing or making Jackson Powers-Johnson prove himself again as a second-year player. So let's look at the Raiders roster. There are only a handful of players I would say could roll into camp and say, they're locked into a starting role. Max Crosby, obviously. There's not much competition behind Daniel Carlson and A.J. Cole. You look at Colton Miller. He's locked into the left tackle spot. We'll see if he gets paid. And Jacoby Myers, simply because of the lack of experience at wide receiver. Those guys can roll in and say, they've been Raiders. Their spots are basically secured. Everyone else on that roster should have their head on the swivel at training camp and should look to earn their role. Even the guys they just signed, Jermaine Pratt and Jeremy Chin. Even though those guys are signed by this regime, you still have to earn your spot if you're a new Raider. But I think it's a push to Jackson Powers-Johnson to say, hey, 1 year or 3/4 of a good year is not enough to solidify your spot. You got to solidify your spot again, especially with the new coaching staff. So I think it's just a matter of pushing Jackson Powers-Johnson. I think he'll answer the call on that one. Ultimately, he's going to be the starting center, in my opinion. And Jordan Meredith will be your best interior offensive lineman off the sideline.
Yeah, and it was interesting. We did a short video yesterday on our YouTube channel. If you haven't watched it, you can, about 5 veterans who could get cut. I know, Mo, you did a piece earlier, I believe, during the minicamp about the same subject. But I named 5 players: Zamir White, Tommy Eichenberg, Dylan Parham. I know, might be a long shot, but hey, you don't know. There's a 4-way battle for 3 guard spots there, and Trey Tucker, and then Aiden O'Connell. Although Aiden O'Connell, I don't think Aiden O'Connell gets cut, but I think he could be traded, and you mentioned that before too. I was surprised at the reaction, and I think you're right. I think people automatically think, because a guy's been there and he's had a little bit of success, maybe not longevity, but some success, that somehow that player can't be cut, or moved in a trade, whatever it may be. That's simply not the case. When you look at the competition and you have the rookies, remember too, the political side of this, we talk about this all the time, Mo. These players, Dylan Lobby, these guys who weren't drafted by John Spytek and Pete Carroll, their stock, they start at ground zero. So if they don't prove themselves in camp to be better than the other guy that just came in, I expect more so than last year. I expect several surprise. I say surprise. We won't be surprised, but I think a lot of fans will be surprised by some of these guys who don't make it, or some guys who might get moved or waived, whatever it may be.
I say this every year. Be careful about getting attached to certain players, especially if they're not solidified as starters. So we're probably going to talk more about this in the show, but Jacorian Bennett, I think, is a prime candidate to get traded this offseason.
Yeah.
Vinny Bonsignore pointed out he ran with the third stringers last Sunday before the padded practices. He among the top cornerback options, he has gotten, by my read, the least amount of first string snaps with the first team defense. So DeCameron Richardson has recently got a lot of run with the first team defense. Obviously, Eric Stokes and Darian Porter were the front runners all the way going back to the spring. JT Woods, who the Raiders just signed a week ago, got some run with the second team defense, while Jacorian Bennett was with the third team. To me, that's noteworthy, and it's sort of a flashing light that, hey, Jacorian Bennett could be the odd man out in that cornerback room.
Yeah, and when we come back from the break, Mo, we're going to talk about that defense because there's a lot of stuff going on, and you just mentioned Bennett. I want to talk about the battle at cornerback. There's some surprise names there. You talked about, I think you were tweeting about it the other day, and so I want to get into that a little bit. Talk about Jamal Adams, what's going on with that again. We talked about it as the whole show last week. But there's a lot happening on that defense. By the way, if you're looking for Christian Wilkins stuff, whatever. I mean, weird. We all know how weird it was. I don't have much to say about it. And I'm not going to go on about it for 10 minutes because they're going to take care of it with the grievance with the NFLPA and the league, and it'll go from there. Weird stuff. It's just weird stuff. So we'll see what happens there. But there's a lot happening on that Raiders defense. And to me, we just talked about the excitement and what we're seeing in camp with the offense. But if you can't put a defense out on the field that's at least top end, middle of the road, what's good's going to do you? We saw what the Bengals did, losing 5 games last year where they scored 30-plus points. So the Raiders defense has to come along. So when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about that as well. And then we'll mention a little bit, too. Mo has a new piece up on SportsNot about the Raiders, and we'll go through that a little bit as well. All right, we're going to take that first break. When we come back, we'll get to the defensive conversation. We'll talk about Jacorian Bennett, the rest of the defensive backs, what's going on there on Silver and Black today. Do us a favor, if you want to call in and be part of the show, yes, the third segment is the switchboard. We're going to take your calls. It is 702-900-7869. 702-900-7869 is the number. You're with Mr. Moton and Mr. Gulbransen. This is Silver and Black today. School's in session. We'll be back right after these words. Hey, you're back. We're back. It's time for more Silver and Black today, Odyssey Sports original podcast. Also heard on the radio in Las Vegas, 101.5 KDON and the Bet Las Vegas. Thanks for being with us, Las Vegas. Thanks for being with us, Raider Nation, all over the world, listening to us. If you don't already subscribe to the podcast, do us a favor. Do so wherever you get your audio, and need a big favor from you. It's a heavy lift, I know. Rate and review us if you would. Thank you so much. That would be great for us if you could do that. And don't forget, if you're watching us on video, subscribe, hit that notifications bell and the thumbs up. We appreciate you as well. Follow us on all socials. You can find us. Just look Silver and Black today. YouTube, Rumble on video, Facebook on video, X, TikTok, wherever you find it, you'll find us there. And yes, some exciting things coming up, Mo. We got some exciting partnerships coming up for the season, which we'll get to in a few weeks. Got an exciting interview next week. Mo, Mark Schlereth. I know Raider fans have mixed feelings about the guy because of his Bronco roots. But we're going to talk to him about the AFC West, where the Raiders play in that, the rest of the AFC West. And we will press him for you to say, hey, Mark, take off your Bronco crap and your bias there, and let's look at it as objective journalists. So we'll do that. So Mark Schlereth will be on the show next week. Don't forget for that. So Mo, Raider fans get fired up if an interviewee or a guest has any affiliation with any other team besides the Raiders.
Go figure, right?
I understand it, but we like to bring everybody on, and we'll see what he has to say. It'll be good. Okay, let's get into the defense. One thing too, and you usually see this at training camp, the defense, especially with a guy like Max Crosby, whose motor never shuts off. I love the stories coming out of camp about how he's talking about, I forgot who talked about it. One of his teammates was talking, maybe it was Butler, talking about how Max Crosby, even at home with his wife and his kids, gets them up at the same time every morning because everybody's all in and it's all about regiment. It's all about discipline. I love that. This defense, though, we're hearing a lot coming out since they put the pads on. A lot of positional experiments going on. We know about the Jamal Adams moving to linebacker. We're seeing standout plays. We're seeing surprises. Like you said, Jacorian Bennett running around with the third team. When you look at this, we identified a few weeks ago that cornerback battle, let's start there. And the fact that Jacorian Bennett might be on the outs, who knows? But there's been some surprising names there. Mo, what surprised you most so far of what you're seeing and hearing from our colleagues on the ground in Henderson from training camp when it comes to the battle for cornerback? Let's start with that.
Greedy Vance is emerging as a potential primary nickel candidate to start there. I spoke about Greedy Vance a bit in a previous Sportsnet article 2 weeks ago. I said either he or Mello Dotson will be the undrafted rookies to make the 50-man roster. Of course, the Raiders waived Mello Dotson before camp. Greedy Vance has now emerged. He's made some plays. I think it was Taylor Rocha of KNTV in Vegas noted that Greedy Vance had the only interception in the last non-padded practice last week, and then he built on that momentum this week, made some plays, and he's on the field quite a bit in the nickel. And he could potentially be that player that people talk more about as the preseason goes on. Now he's done it. Now he's flashed at training camp. Now he's got to do it in the preseason to, again, take that nickel job, not away from Jeremy Chin, because I expect Jeremy Chin to continue to move around the secondary. Mm-hmm. But if Greedy Vance wants to get a prominent role, he can do it by solidifying himself in the preseason against some second and third stringers, potentially, maybe some starters if he gets some first team reps. But Greedy Vance is the name to look out for.
Yeah, exactly. And to me, that's where that competition back there, safety, we haven't heard a lot about what's happening at safety, but we've talked a lot about safety here, Mo, and the competition happening there between younger players and veterans. Is it surprising we haven't heard anything there yet?
Not at all, only because, number one, I think they really have high regard for Isaiah Pola-Mao. Made a couple of plays during the non-padded practices. And then, as I mentioned, Jeremy Chin, if Greedy Vance can claim that slot cornerback position, Jeremy Chin is going to be playing mostly safety. So Jeremy Chin and Isaiah Pola-Mao pretty much locked in as your starting safeties. Then you got Lonnie Johnson Jr. and Thomas Harper as your backups. I think the Raiders feel like they're set there for now, barring injury. But if, let's say, Greedy Vance does not win that slot cornerback job, or they let go of Darnay Holmes, who was supposed to be their primary slot cornerback, then we could see a potential addition at safety once the cuts come in August 26th, the last week of August, right before week 1 starts.
Yeah, let me ask you this, Mo. I want to ask because it seems like the season's. I mean, the camp just started, right? Just last week. So it seems like it's early, but it's not. We're only 4 weeks away from week 1, right? When you look at the Jamal Adams switch to linebacker, from everything we've seen and heard, and again, only a few days in padded practice, and we're going to see a joint practice coming up and a simulated game coming up at Allegiant Stadium soon. That Adams to linebacker move, what's your gut telling you? Is that going to pay off? Is it paid off already?
We've already seen it. That's a position he essentially played when he was with the Seattle Seahawks. Remember, I mentioned when the Raiders signed Adams, he had 9.5 sacks in 1 year under Pete Carroll. He was lining up mostly in the box. I had someone on X ask me, is size going to be a problem for him? On the Raiders website, he's listed at about 6'1", 213. He's probably going to bulk up into the 220s, but that is the average size of your weak side will linebacker in today's NFL. A lot of them are what you would call big safeties in most cases.
Absolutely.
Now they're about in the 220, so he's already in that. He's only about 5 to 7 pounds away from that weight range. He's played in that role already. It is not going to be a major transition for Jamal Adams, other than he just has to be able to stay healthy playing that position. That's been his major issues, that he's been hurt over
Right.
the past couple of years. So if he could stay healthy, that linebacker position that we looked at early in the offseason as a weakness for the Raiders, now looking like a strength, as we're going to talk about Devin White in a moment. You look at Devin White, Jamal Adams, Jermaine Pratt, who's going to be their primary linebacker. Landon Roberts, don't forget him as a good run defender. All of a sudden, you're looking at the middle of that defense, and you're thinking, it looks pretty good.
Right. And with the ejection seat being pulled on Christian Wilkins, we had questions about up front. But so when you get stronger in that linebacking core, as you have with Jamal Adams, that's big too, because we don't know what's going to happen up front. And so to have somebody like Adams there who could rush the passer and perhaps create some mismatches for you is a big deal. So I think to me, when you think about the rest of training camp, Mo, and you look at the defensive question marks that we lined up preseason, that story about the interior of the defense and then who wins out at cornerback, to me, those are still the two dominant stories for this defense, and the question mark that we need answered before we hit September 9th.
Yeah, it's going to be the biggest question until we see separation there. We're hearing reports that Darian Porter's having a good camp. Eric Stokes has rotated in and out. The Cameron Richardson has really made some strides, and his going into his second season. And I talked about Jacorian Bennett in the first segment, possibly being the odd man out. And a lot of people want to point to, it's because of his size. Pete Carroll's playing favorites. Cameron Richardson is about 6'2", 195. That's why he's getting more reps with the first team than Jacorian Bennett. And I would pause on that and say, I don't think it's just about size.
No.
Let's remember that Pete Carroll didn't draft or sign Cameron Richardson or Jacorian Bennett. So they're both starting off with a clean slate. It's a possibility that Cameron Richardson just looks more impressive than Jacorian Bennett at this point in camp. Doesn't mean that's the way it's going to end up. Jacorian Bennett can still earn a starting job. But they're both starting off with a clean slate in front of a new coaching staff where there are no obligations to we have to start this player. It's a matter of competition and who looks better at camp right now.
Yes, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because to me, that's what I love about a Pete Carroll camp so far. And I know the honeymoon, until the Raiders start winning games, people are going to love Pete Carroll. If he starts losing games, then we'll be back where we're back to. But watching this, the competition, and I said it earlier, and you just repeated it, which is those guys weren't drafted by this regime. Okay, so they start with a clean slate, which is double-edged. First of all, they got nothing invested in you as far as, if they got to cut you, they'll cut you. But you also have the opportunity. And I think what you see, and to me, I see this all over the place, including my career in business and everything, Mo, which has been, if you have an opportunity and the door is open and you want to compete and you bring it, you have unlimited possibilities. If you can beat somebody else out, i.e. what you're talking about, Cameron Richardson, same thing. He was not drafted by these guys. But if he goes out and performs, and look at the positive competition here. This is not in the past where, we're going to have competition, but then watch the good writers and people who cover the team. You hear stories about, so-and-so's locked in as a starter. They don't just say that because they think it. They also say it because they have coaches who talk to them off the record, all that kind of stuff. You're not getting that this year. You're getting a coaching staff that says, hey, man, outside of Geno Smith and Max Crosby and a couple guys, everybody, you got to go out and earn it. And to me, that's how you get to a place as a team where you put the best players on the field who are going to impact the most. So that competition on defense, we're going to continue to see it. Then you have a leader like Max Crosby who's demanding performance out of this. I'm sure he's looking at this as, okay, this has got to be it now. After all he's been through with all the coaching changes, all that stuff, this has got to be it. And I think that Patrick Graham having the longevity that he's had too is really big here, Mo. Talk about that. Talk about the fact that the veterans who've been here that are locked in like Max Crosby, they know this system and they know Patrick Graham, which helps them develop faster.
Helps them develop faster to have the foundation of the defense set already. being there, going into what is 4th year now.
Yep.
But of course, you're going to have to factor in the Pete Carroll influence, the tweaks, bringing in Jamal Adams, moving him to will side linebacker, and also the size of your secondary getting a lot bigger with Jeremy Chin being added, Isaiah Polamau being promoted. But Isaiah Polamau knows the system, knows Patrick Graham's system. He hasn't been a consistent starter outside of last year, but he's very familiar with what's going on in that defense, and it's going to help him progress as a starter, hopefully. Now, he has to make the big plays on the back end, because if you're going to play in center field, you got to force some turnovers. You got to make some impact plays. You can't just be out there making tackles. You got to get some takeaways to help your defense and give more possessions to your offense. So we'll see how that progresses for some of the young players on the roster. I think Patrick Graham being there helps those guys, the Isaiah Polamau of that roster. But having Pete Carroll's influence on that secondary with the bigger defensive backs and adding Jamal Adams and his versatility is going to be a good blend for that defense. And hopefully they can be at least in the top half of the league in total yards and points allowed.
Absolutely. There you go. All right. Phew. Fast segment number 2. Good stuff. Raiders defense is out there performing, and we talked about the offense. So we'll keep an eye on training camp. Again, we're going to have Mark Schlereth on to talk about the AFC West. He's an Odyssey brother. Yes, he's part of the Odyssey family. So we're going to talk to him next week about that. We'll get a kind of an outside perspective, and we will make sure he checks his Bronco bias. I promise. Right, Mo? We're going to make sure. We're going to call him out if he does it. We will. So hang in there. All right. Now we're going to step aside for our final break. When we come back, we're going to get to your phone calls on the Raider Nation switchboard. You want to be a part of it next time? 702-900-7869, 702-900-7869. It's Scott, it's Mo, it's Silver and Black today. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, home stretch here on Silver and Black today. Odyssey Sports, original podcast covering the Raiders. Also on the radio in Las Vegas on 101.5 KDON and the Bet HD2. Thanks for being with us, Las Vegas. Scott Gulbransen, Mo Moton back with you. We're talking Raiders. Now we're going to get to your phone calls. But before we do that, for those of you watching, we have a special treat. And it's not often that you get to delve deeply into the lives and the history of your hosts, right? But Mr. Moton shared a picture on the interwebs recently of himself as a child, and we're putting that up here. Mo, look at this. Talk about this a little bit. So we're looking at this picture of Mo in grade school in front of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which even though I am vastly older than Mo, I can relate. I like the Turtles. The first movie I saw, I might have been drinking at the time, but nonetheless, I saw it. But Mo's here, and what strikes me about this, Mo, is that even as a child, you were Midtown Mo. Look at the style here. You have the bluish turtleneck with the suspenders, my man. Talk a little bit about this.
I hated the suspenders as a kid. I will say my parents bought me corduroy pants and suspenders, as you could see in that photo. And as a child, I felt like I can't wait to take this stuff off. But as you get older and you get into your own style and you see some of the stuff that the younger people are wearing in today's world, check out the NBA players and the WNBA players and how they walk in before games and what they're wearing. And you're like, you know what? Thinking back to this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles background photo of me in kindergarten going to first grade, you know what? The suspenders and the turtleneck aren't that bad compared to what the people are wearing today. I was styling and profiling like Ric Flair in that photo. So I was going through some old photos, Scott, over the past weekend, and I said, look at this photo. And I'm thinking back, that's a kid that has style.
Yes. And we will share more old photos, and I will show them. Since I'm older than you, I even got one
in black and white.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. But hey, it was 1969. So yes, absolutely. We'll get to that. But we're going to get to your phone calls now before we run out of time and can't get to any. But we're going to go out, by the way, again, 702-900-7869, 702-900-7869. And I got to give a shout out real quick to Al in Denver. Let me double check on that and make sure I got his voice or his whatchamacallit, his name right. Because I'll tell you, you're going to laugh at this, Mo. This is really funny. And I gotta send a note to our buddy Q Myers about this because I get this guy who texts us. It's Al from Colorado Springs, right? So I'm going to read his text, and you tell me what you notice about this real quick, Mo. It says, "What's up, Q? Mitch and Gangster got me cracking up. You just told us that the only two teams that had two players with 2,000 yards receiving, but blah, 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 blah." He's got the wrong show. He must be listening to Raider Nation Radio, which, of course, I used to host a daily show on, and Q used to be my co-host. So, Al, if you're listening to Silver and Black today, you may not be. But if you are, you're texting the wrong show. I'm happy to take your texts, but you're referencing a conversation we know nothing about. So please, and I will send it to Q, though. Maybe he'll read it on there. I don't know. But anyway, I thought it was funny. All right.
Shout out to Q.
Yeah, I mean.
He does a great job on Raider Nation Radio.
Yes, absolutely. So, good deal. Okay, now let's head out to Armando in Salt Lake City. Let's see what Armando has to say.
Gentlemen, this is Armando from Salt Lake, but I would be remiss to neglect honoring my Jersey roots, so I got to throw that in there here. I've given myself a few days to digest from the Christian Wilkins bombshell. I'm sure you're going to be getting a ton of calls about it. But after a few days of marinating and thinking, I'm not going to have any huge, big hot takes. But the reality of the situation is going to be, it's going to now be, the onus is going to be on everyone else to be able to step up in his absence. You know, whether it's the rest of the DTs, whether it's Tyree Wilson moving inside, the entire defensive line as a whole is going to have to come together and fill the void. That being said, one reason for optimism that I wanted to point out, because I feel like every off season, maybe not everyone, but a lot of them, there's always that one big event, right? Khalil Mack getting traded, Malcolm Kuntz getting injured, ad nauseum, I feel, and just there's always the other shoe dropping. What gives me a little bit of optimism is that this happened a little bit earlier than some of the other events. Some of the other events were just like right before the season started. Antonio Brown, that's another one that pops in my head. Geez, they were a lot closer to the season actually starting. There's some time for everyone else to be able to get the reps and be able to step up. So that gives me a reason for optimism. I just wanted to throw that out there for you guys. It's been a while, so hope you guys are well, and much love to you both. Keep doing what you're doing. The summer shows are awesome too. I listen to them whenever they stroll in, and talk to you soon. Take care.
All right, there's Armando in the Beehive State. And Armando, I'm blowing you a kiss since you mentioned Christian Wilkins.
Gosh.
No, but his point there about Tyree Wilson, we didn't talk about Tyree Wilson in segment 2 about the defense, Mo, but that inside of that defense, we've seen him move there. We've heard good feedback there, but I don't disagree with Armando. I think, yes, guys got to step up. We talked about Adams at linebacker helping with that. So, and the fact that the Christian Wilkins thing happened, I don't look at that as bad drama like we've seen from this Raider organization in the past. I look at it as good, meaning they weren't taking any crap. Get him out of here. It didn't matter who he was, how much they were paying him. They voided the contract. They had reason to do it. We'll see if that holds up. But to me, that's a positive.
Armando, I'll throw Chandler Jones in there as well.
Oh, Chandler Jones, yes.
You know, hope he's well, by the way.
Yes, I was thinking about him the other day.
Armando, you're right. It just seems like every offseason there's a Raider storyline that you'd rather not hear about, right? And this one happened early. The Raiders made the quick decision to cut bait with Christian Wilkins. Apparently, they feel like there's something in his contract that he breached, and that's why they're going after all his guarantees. That is the financial legal side of it. But I wrote a piece on Bleacher Report after mandatory minicamp, and I said one of the bold predictions I had was Tyree Wilson's going to move entirely inside, and he's going to get most of his snaps on the inside. Now, I don't know if that's going to happen, but it could now that Christian Wilkins is not in the picture. And I think if you're looking at it from a Tyree Wilson perspective, this could be now or never for Tyree Wilson. If he doesn't break out this year, it may never happen with the Raiders, because now he's going to be edge rusher number 3, and he could have a significant amount of playing time on the inside. If he can't do anything with that after having opportunity to start last year, after Malcolm Kuntz got hurt, then he's probably the Raiders are probably going to decline his 5th-year option. He'll probably wind up going elsewhere. But this is a prime opportunity for Tyree Wilson to either break out or show that he has the versatility to play more than 70% of the snaps and make a major impact. So I'm looking at Tyree Wilson as the guy that could step up alongside Adam Butler, who's going to be a fixture in the middle of that defense.
And I think Tyree Wilson, to me, has a better opportunity on the inside. He's an athletic guy. I mean, pre-injury and all that. So if he can bulk up, if he can get there and get the reps and make an impact, then boom. Then you suddenly don't look at that draft pick. Maybe you can think about him being overdrafted, but other than that, you don't look at it as a waste. So we'll see how it goes. But good call, Armando. All right, we're going right out to Brian in Clovis. Here's Brian.
Hey guys, Brian from Clovis. Well, I haven't called in for a couple months, but here we are on the eve of another season starting. Training camp kicked off, I think, yesterday? Today's Wednesday. So I gotta admit, I'm feeling pretty good. It was a good off season. Wasn't perfect by any means, but it's better than what we've had, what we're usually accustomed to as professionals in the building. We have I think, a very proven coach who still wants to prove some things, I think, right? Maybe he'll come out like Dick Vermeil did with the Rams a few years ago. I doubt it, but hey, I'm a fan. Short for fanatic for a reason. Some of the things I love from this offseason, the draft, right? Sometimes you'd have to talk yourselves into Alex Leatherwood or John Abram or Gary Conley type. I didn't really have to do that this time or last year, right? So we stacked 2 drafts in a row. And, of course, we haven't seen anybody on the field from this draft. But, Scott, you called it with Jeanty. It's just I'm excited about him. And another great move was getting that Crosby extension in, right? At the time they did, because look what's happening right now with Mike Parsons and with Trey Hendrickson. And, those guys are, driving, max set the cost that he had, and everybody else comes in and wants to get a little higher. So that was great. Contract for Geno came in cheaper than I thought it was going to be, or the extension for him. And that was another great move because the way it's structured, they're able to get out of that relatively cheaply if they want in a couple years. Now, I don't say they will, but it does give them that little position like the Chiefs did when they drafted Mahomes, right? So now the Raiders still might need, definitely do not guarantee they need, but they might need a long-term answer at quarterback. And now they're in the draft in the next couple of years. They can take their time, pounce when the time is right. And, I'm a draft guy, so I can tell you already that this next QB draft is going to be better than this last one, that's for sure. But I have to admit, hearing Pete talk about winning a lot, I hope they do. I really hope they do, of course, but I just kind of wonder a little bit because there are a couple things that they could have done, such as they have all this cap space. And perhaps they're signing on guys or spending it on guys right now, but they had an opportunity to keep Spillane, keep someone like Tyson in the house. Not the hugest names. I'm sure Murray was going to be too expensive anyway. He's gone, but I mean, looking where we are with the linebacker core and the pass rush, we definitely could have re-signed those guys and still have some cap space left. So anyway, love your show. I'll listen every time it's on. Looking forward to the season and listen to you guys talk about the comings and goings of what's happening with the Raiders. I hope you have a great day. Okay, bye.
There we go. Brian and Clovis, the Central Valley representing there. And it's interesting, Mo, he brought up the Spillane thing again. And let me tell you, if Jamal Adams works out like he could, I don't think you'll remember Robert Spillane's name.
I think fans will continue to say that Raiders should have kept Robert Spillane along with Jamal Adams. But I look at it this way. Let's keep in mind that even though fans may want certain players back, there's a possibility, and because we never know what goes on in these negotiations, right, Scott, in free agency? What if the player just wanted to go elsewhere?
I know. Yeah.
There are some situations where the player just looks at a situation and go, I'd rather be in this situation.
Right.
We have no idea what the Raiders offer or if they offer Robert Spillane and if he wanted to stay there. So I say the same thing about Trayvon Merrick and Nate Hobbs. There's a possibility that they just wanted to go elsewhere. We have no clue. What I wanted to touch on, though, is it's funny he mentioned Alex Leatherwood as one of those picks you had to talk yourself into, even though you know it's a bad pick, but you're like, I'm a Raider fan. I want this to work out so bad. I forgot I wanted my Blake. Jordan Reed of ESPN listed a whole bunch of names that came out of the 2021 draft, offensive linemen that worked out this was after Rashawn Slater signed his extension and became the highest paid tackle. He listed a whole bunch of offensive linemen that have played well in the NFL. I would say it's about 15 to 20 names. And then I quote tweeted, and then Raiders selected Alex Leatherwood. All of these names that worked out from the first round all the way down to the 6th round where Trey Smith, the Kansas City Chiefs guard, was picked. All of these names from the 1st to the 6th round working out, and the Raiders wind up with Alex Leatherwood. It would be the Raiders under Gruden to pick the one offensive lineman out of all these names that just flames out of the NFL within 2-3 years. And people were going off on that pick. And again, just to go back to what Brian said, you knew the pick was bad when they made it.
Yeah.
You just hope that it worked out at some point, and it never did. But let's just hope that with John Spytek now in the draft war room, that the Raiders start to draft a lot better in the early rounds.
Absolutely. And I think they're on much better footing. So, Brian, thank you for your call.
No more Alex Leatherwoods, Brian. Let's hope.
No more. Oh, please no. All right, we go from Brian now to our good friend. We haven't heard from him in a while. I was getting concerned, but he is a ghost, so you just never know when he's going to appear. It's Dave Casper, the ghost.
Hey, guys. This is Dave Casper, the ghost. I just wanted to touch base. I know I haven't called in a few months. But I've been listening all the time. I just usually for me, when the football season ends, I sort of go into a reverse hibernation and shut it down more for my mental well-being. But I listen all the time. So, as the season's starting to gear up, I just wanted to touch base and reach out. And I hope you guys are having a great summer. I know Mo was wondering where I was over his almond milk lattes. So I'm here. I'm listening, watching all the time. I just wanted to, like I said, touch base and throw a couple of comments out. You guys both have picked the Raiders to win 7-8 games, I think. I agree with that. I think they're in that 7 to 9 win range. Overall, I just think there are still some holes left on this team, especially on the defense. I know they just signed Jamal Adams for whatever that's worth. He, injury plague lately, and he's probably a shell of his former self, but throw him out there, see if he can stick. They also signed some other corner, I think TJ Woods. I'm not familiar with him. I think he was with the Chargers last. But overall, the only other time I'm going to say this was when Gruden came back the second time. I'm more excited about the coaching staff than I am the players. Geno Smith doesn't knock my socks off. He's definitely an improvement. Some of the other acquisitions, I'm not excited about. I am really excited about, to be honest with you, Chip Kelly and what he can do with this offense. And Ashton Jeanty, obviously, I would love to see what he can do with the run game. And see what Pete Carroll, he was removed a year, so let's see if I'm sure he still has fire in his belly. But when Gruden came back the second time, I was ecstatic. Unfortunately, we know how it turned out. And so I'm more excited about the coaching staff, and I'm just curious to see what progress. I'm not worried about their record this year. If they are 9-10 wins and make the playoffs, great. I'm not expecting that. I just want to see progress. I want to see more turnovers. I want to see more production in the red zone. And just growth and this new philosophy. And hopefully that's what I'm gearing on. Anyway, guys, I'm back, well rested, and I will be calling more frequently now. See you later, guys.
All right. Dave Casper, the ghost. I love when callers of the show who kind of take the summer off call in. It sounds like they're calling like a jilted lover, like, oh, I'm sorry I haven't called you. And so, no, it's all good. Like summertime, you take your time, you do what you got to do. We love hearing from you whenever you call in, whenever it may be. But he sounds, I think, a lot like we sound from the perspective of to get to 8 or 9 wins would not be a failure after winning 4 games last year. Now, again, I'm not saying I'm starting to feel more positive about this team, thinking they might go over the total that I put, but I'm still sticking to it, Mo, because it would show him. He talked about what he wanted to see there. Turnovers, mistake-free football, that type of stuff. that's how you build a winning foundation where you become a playoff team year after year.
Right. He mentioned the two key stats that I've been harping on all summer. I know he's just checking back in, but I've been talking about this for weeks. Turnovers for the defense, the Raiders need to do better at forcing turnovers. I said it last week. They haven't been a consistent turnover defense since 2016 when they were, I believe, second in the league. That was a playoff year, by the way. And then the red zone offensive execution. Can Ashton Jeanty help out with the run game in that area? We know what Brock Bowers can do. But Geno Smith in Seattle, I will say, while I do acknowledge that Geno Smith is a significant upgrade over Aiden O'Connell, he's had his fair share of issues in the red zone as well. So we'll see how that works out. But I agree with Dave Casper Ghost in saying that, and I've said this before, this is the best Raiders coaching staff in quite a while. You look at Pete Carroll and his accomplishments and what he's done on the collegiate level and the pro level, winning a Super Bowl and a national title, one of 3 coaches to do that. You look at Chip Kelly and what he's done with his offense, NFL experience, went back to college, kind of reinvented his offensive philosophy, runs the ball very well now with his offenses, has great designs there. I am very intrigued by what Chip Kelly can do with this offense, and that gives me hope that these young Raiders on offense, Jack Bech, Dante, Thornton, Ashton Jeanty, can be contributors right away because they have the play caller who has the experience and the innovative knowledge to put them in the right spots to make plays. So I like these young guys because of Chip Kelly. You have these young guys with Luke Getsy or Scott Turner. I don't feel that great about them other than maybe Ashton Jeanty, who I think is a good talent regardless of what offense he plays in. But you can get more out of these players with a quality offensive play caller. Chip Kelly is that.
Yeah, and Chip Kelly has, what I like about him, though he's been around the block several times, he is inventive. He is staying up with current play design and those offenses, right? So, and that's, I think, coming out of the college game and what he was able to do at Ohio State is a big part of that. So very good and very good points, Mo, on that one. And Dave, of course, another great call. So thank you for that.
Back.
Yes, welcome back. I love it. All right, now we're going out to Gary, my man Gary.
Hey, Scott and Mo, it's Gary from the Poconos. I hope you guys are enjoying your summer and having a great one at that. My thoughts as training camp begins, number 1, I've hitched my wagon to the Spike Pete Carroll and coaching staff. Number 2, regardless of the players, it's the coaching staff has to pull the best out of each player. Number 3, Christian Wilkins is all the talk. My point is that it's a glass half full. Being on the PUP list lets the players get more reps. Even if he gets in the green light, he's not in football shape. So thanks, guys. Good luck this season. We'll talk to you soon. Gary.
All right, there's Gary, who I obviously called before Kissgate began.
Kissgate.
And it's funny, though, these callers who haven't called during the summer, it's like the first day of school, isn't it, Mo? You see everybody back from the first day of school. Hey, let's go. I love it. Good stuff.
We should have the callers call in with their back to school outfits. Like, you
can send your pictures. There you go.
Not to be Christian Wilkins creepy, but
yes,
like, just kind of post your back to school outfit. You're checking in. All right, you got your Raider jersey on. You got your.
For those of you watching, you saw just fun.
Like it's pretty cool to get the regular, the usual suspects, as they say, back.
Yes, the Jacobs of Fresno. We haven't heard from him in a while. So we'll see. We'll see. All right, Gary, thanks for the call, man. I appreciate it. All right, we're going to end the show with a final call from our serial, and he doesn't take the summer off because Tarek, he goes 365, 24/7 when it comes to giving us feedback on his Raiders. He was texting me pictures. He was in Denver and talking trash to Bronco fans around Denver, which, again, we were talking earlier off the air, Mo, about how crazy people are these days in all sorts of ways. And so doing that's not easy. So, Tarek's got some cojones. All right, here's Tarek.
What is up, Scott and Mo? This is Tarek checking in from Chicago. Just wanted to talk a little Raiders training camp. The pads come on today. Can't wait for that. Time to separate the men from the boys. This is really where you earn your keep and make a name for yourself. Just right quick about the Christian Wilkins thing. I'm glad we have moved on from him. Hopefully we get to keep the money that we voided. Just want to say that this is what happens when you're constantly changing regimes. You inherit players from the previous regimes, and sometimes it's through the draft, sometimes it's through free agency. So consistency is so important in a front office. Jamal Adams, we'll see what he brings to the table. Hopefully, I was a little surprised to hear that he had 58 tackles in the last 4 years. Has struggled to stay on the field due to a lot of injuries. That guy came into the NFL as an absolute beast. He was an absolute monster. So I think this is certainly his last shot. And I hope he has a great camp. I heard he's lining up at linebacker. But if anybody can get him straight, it's Pete Carroll. With having that familiarity, I think hopefully it bodes well for him and bodes well for the defense. I want to give a quick shout out to Pastor Mike. Those are some impressive statistics he gave us on Geno Smith. Geno Smith does have a very solid, outstanding indoor record, but let's hope he can show that he can play in all elements. And playing in Seattle where it rains all the time, I'd like to think he's going to have a solid year, both indoors as well as outdoors. And one thing I do want to say is one thing I love about your guys' show is since I've tuned into your show for the first time and since I've been calling into your show, you guys keep it real. I talk to a lot of Raider fans and some of them, consistently scream commitment to excellence, pride and poise. Fine, so be it, but we haven't had that in quite a while. So I love how you guys keep it real. You're non-biased, you're completely objective, and you don't tell the fans what they want to hear. So I commend you guys for that. Have a fantastic week. Looking forward to your ongoing wonderful training camp coverage. I'll talk to you guys later. Go Raiders. Bye-bye.
All right, there's Tarek. Tarek likes objectivity. Figured. Go figure.
Yeah, still people out there like that, Scott? Still people.
I guess so. And listen, I told you earlier, Mo, I'm scaring myself because I feel really, really positive about the Raiders. Like, even objectively, I feel positive. Like it's weird. So I'm trying to squelch that feeling. You know what I mean? It's like when you're 14 and all these emotions are going on. It's going bouncing. Hormones are bouncing. Suddenly, I'm like thinking, man, the Raiders, could they win 9 games?
It's all about perspective for me.
Yeah.
And I know some fans aren't going to like to hear this, but I'm not saying 8 wins is a good thing. It's below 500. But if you look at where they were and where they could get to, if you told me today that the Raiders go 8-9 and they were sort of in the playoff race toward the end of the season, I'd be like, okay, I still feel good about this team's future. Pete Carroll still has at least maybe 2 more quality years of coaching left. Chip Kelly's still in the prime of his play calling, coaching career. You got Geno Smith there under contract, just signed an extension. Ashton Jeanty's young. That offense is young. I'm thinking Colton Miller and Jacoby Myers will both get extensions. Max Crosby is still there with a new contract. The core of their roster is going to be there, assuming Jacoby and or Colton Miller get their extensions. The core of their roster is going to be there. So if they show significant progress, even at 7-8 wins, you think about, okay, what could they do with another quality free agent and or draft class adding on to that? Right. Then you're thinking, okay, this could be a playoff team in a very short window. Sometimes it is baby steps, sometimes it's moderate steps, sometimes it's a big leap. I hope it is a big leap. But all I'm telling you is if they double their win total and they're in the playoff picture late in the season, that's more than you can say about this team in the past few years.
Right. And Mo, you don't get participation trophies. Okay. Wins are wins, losses are losses. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to watch that this year too. If they win 8 games and 3 or 4 of their losses were, or even more, were due, by 7 or less points or 10 or less points, where they're in games, especially with playoff teams from last year and teams that are continual playoff teams, then you start to feel, okay, you're getting closer, right? If you had that extra oomph, if you had that extra player on defense or that extra player on the offensive line, whatever it may be, then you see the real progress, right? And you see that going into next year, to your point, even if you finish outside the playoffs and you're in the lower half of the first round of the draft, you can move up. You can do all sorts of things to get that player if you're close. So I think that's something to keep an eye on. Again, don't feel good about losses. Nobody ever feels good about losses. But Remember, the Raiders were getting blown out of games against teams that were not that good either. So to me, I'm going to watch that. I don't see a Pete Carroll team getting wiped off the scoreboard by teams that are inferior to them or equal to them. I just don't see it. So I'm going to look for that as well. I think it's something to watch as we head into the season. Mo, you want to close on that?
Really quick, a lot of people have said this, and I'll say it, and I'll explain why I say this. A lot of fans say it just feels different this year, right? And it seems like that's said every offseason. Oh, it feels different this year, and it's not. It feels different this year, and it's not. No, this year actually feels different because going into the season with Josh McDaniels, you're like, I like this team. They got Dante Adams. But I don't know about Josh McDaniels, that he learned from his mistakes from Denver. And there were a lot of skeptical people, including us, that maybe Josh McDaniels is just not head coaching material, and it proves that he wasn't, right? Antonio Pierce takes over. Okay, it feels different this year. He's a Raider through and through, but I don't know. Doesn't have the experience. He's making these egregious mistakes in preseason with game management. The signs were there.
Yeah.
Now, this offseason, you're like, okay, you got the accomplished head coach. You got the innovative offensive play caller. You got a top draft pick who looks like he's ready to go right out of college, right? You got all these different parts. Now there's questions with the defense, but with Pete Carroll's coaching, you would assume that one or two of those guys is going to be at least solid by the end of the year. That he's going to get something out of these young guys as he's done in Seattle. So he has the track record to give him the benefit of the doubt there. So you have fewer, I should say, glaring big questions about what's going on at the top, specifically with the coaching staff, than you did in previous years.
Absolutely. Good way to close it. All right, Tarek, thanks for the call, man. And thank all of you for your calls. Again, if you want to be part of the show, 702-900-7869. Name where you're calling from, your question or your comment. Try to be pithy, right? We have some callers that go all 3 minutes, and that's fine. But if you can get it narrowed down, it would be even better. And we get more of you on, too. We don't like to cut off calls or edit calls. I don't think that's right. So if you can keep it shorter, then we can get more people on. You can hear from more out there in Raider Nation. Mo, let everybody know what you got coming up. I know you're doing a little dark retreat here and there, but no ayahuasca, but let everybody know what's going on with you the rest of the week.
Slowly sneaking back onto the scene. Next week, the Bleacher Report Lives will be back in shorter segments. I'll be addressing the biggest Raider topic of the day, whatever that topic is. As you know, Sportsnet, I have pieces there every week. Check out my piece that's out there right now. 3 surprises that could shake up the roster. I talked about Jacorian Bennett, talked about Aiden O'Connell in that piece. Also, if you're thinking about the center position, didn't mention there because I still think Jackson Powers-Johnson wins that job. But check out that Sportsnet piece with surprises that training camp that I think could happen. And back here with you at Silver Black today, Scott, with the fans calling in and having fun and enjoying the beginning of the journey of the 2025 season for the Raiders.
Yes, and we're still doing once a week, but we're very close to going to our multi-shows per week. So be ready for that. That'll come up as we get closer to the start of the season. And a reminder, Mark Schlereth will be with us on the show next week to talk about the AFC West. So yes, we start to get the guests rolling in as we get closer to the season. The summer doldrums, or whatever you want to call them, the relaxed nature of the show starts to ramp up as well. Make sure you follow us also on YouTube. That's the best channel I think you should go to. Doing shorts there where we share stuff with you. We haven't gotten Mo to do any, but he's going to do some soon because he's got stream of consciousness stuff. We're going to get those going as well. We got a cool partner coming on board that I cannot wait to tell you about. We also have our fantasy football league going. We've put it out to the people who were in it. We have 12 teams. People were in it last year. So far, we got 3 or 4 of them back for sure. So if you were in the league last year and you want to come back, we're moving it over to a different provider. We'll tell you about that soon. But nonetheless, we might start a second league to get more people in. We'll let you know. But we're going to do a segment every week this season. Last year we sort of kind of let it go. This year, we're going to put a focus on that. Mo does a lot of fantasy work too up on Bleacher Report. So it's a good opportunity for him to talk about what he knows and all of that. So I had a bad season last year, so it is what it is. We'll continue to do that. Lots of fun stuff coming up here in the course of the season as we get geared up for that. Some new things happening. So make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Don't forget to hit the bell so you know every time we have a new video as well. Mo, my friend, have a great weekend, and we will talk to you next week.
Take care, Scott. Take care, Raider Nation.
All right. For our producer, Mike Robier over at Odyssey, he's a good dude. Thanks for all the work he does. And my good friend, longtime friend, Mark Bonilla, our executive producer on the radio in Las Vegas. Thanks to him as well. And from Moton, I'm Scott Gulbransen. This has been Silver and Black Today, an Odyssey Sports original podcast. We will see you next week. Raider Nation, take care and enjoy your weekend. Bye-bye now. All right.